Imagine putting 5 absolute geniuses in a room, giving them this unlimited budget, and then just watching them completely implode a project in record time.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time.
Right. Like, we've all seen this happen, whether it's, in a corporate boardroom or out on a sports field.
Definitely.
We just have this tendency to romanticize raw talent. We carry this ingrained assumption that if you just group superstars together, they will naturally figure it out and magic will just happen.
Yeah, but I mean, the data tells a much darker story about human collaboration. The reality is that unstructured talent usually just descends into chaos.
Total chaos.
Right. Individuals start stepping on each other's toes, cognitive load skyrockets, and then under pressure, the entire group just collapses.
It's like a house of cards.
Exactly.
Right.
Building a cohesive, high-performing unit is this intricate organizational puzzle. Simply throwing talent at the wall to see what sticks is just a guaranteed recipe for failure.
So true. Well, welcome to today's deep dive, where we are going to explore the hidden architecture of success.
And we've got some great stuff to cover today.
We really do. We're pulling from this fascinating stack of sources for you today to uncover how intentional structure and clearly defined roles actually create that magic we're always looking for.
Yeah, the connections are wild.
They are. We're looking at professional guides outlining the mechanics of successful podcast hosting, of all things.
Which is super meta for us.
Very meta. But we also have these gripping on-the-ground reports from the 2026 World Cup, specifically the highly anticipated Norway versus Senegal clash that's actually playing out today, June 22, 2026.
Such a huge match.
Huge. And finally, we have an end-of-season scouting report on the most improved players in the Kenyan Premier League.
I mean, I know those environments seem completely disconnected at first glance.
Right, what does a microphone have to do with a football pitch in Kenya?
Exactly. But the through line connecting them is actually really striking. Whether someone is, sitting behind a microphone, managing a squad on the global stage, or attempting to salvage a stalling athletic career, the underlying principles of role clarity remain completely identical.
Well, let's start with the microphone, since we're sitting behind one right now.
Perfect place to start.
The professional coaching guides we reviewed for the audio industry offer this perfect microcosm for this whole dynamic. They basically argue that most co-hosted shows fail, but not because the hosts lack, natural chemistry.
Yeah, it's not about a lack of charm.
Exactly. They fail because no one actually sat down and designed the interpersonal dynamic.
Yeah, the guides explicitly state that chemistry is rarely an accident. It's an engineered outcome.
Engineered. I love that word for this.
It really is. The foundational rule they lay out is that every dynamic requires a designated driver. Like someone has to physically drive the bus.
And just to clarify for you listening, this bus driver concept has absolutely nothing to do with ego or who the bigger star of the show is.
No, not at all.
It is entirely about owning the mechanical flow of the conversation. Someone has to be responsible for the transitions, right? For managing the pacing of the segments, introducing guests, and this is a big one, knowing exactly when a tangent has gone too far.
Oh, reining in the tangent is crucial.
Right. You have to steer things back to the main point.
Because from a psychological perspective, when no one owns that driver role, the cognitive load on the audience becomes just unbearable.
Yeah, they get overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The people in the room might be having this thrilling, high-energy conversation, but the listener experiences it as frustrating noise.
Just a wall of sound.
Right. They can feel the lack of foundational structure, even if they can't articulate why the audio feels so chaotic.
That makes so much sense. And then the sources move from that structural control to content design with their second rule, which is redundancy is the enemy.
Huge point.
The guides insist on distinct perspectives. You cannot have a co-host who simply echoes your exact viewpoints. You need contrast to create narrative tension.
Because if two voices serve the exact same function, one of them is basically unnecessary.
Ouch. True, but ouch.
It's harsh but true. And the guides suggest these highly calculated methods to prevent that overlap. They recommend establishing silent turn-taking cues, like subtle hand signals in the studio, so hosts never fight for airspace.
Oh, like what we do when we want to jump in.
Exactly. They also emphasize treating the dynamic as this data-driven exercise,
Yeah.
constantly studying audience retention analytics to figure out which structural segments actually hold attention.
And then ruthlessly cutting the ones that don't.
Ruthlessly.
Okay, I do have to challenge one of the later rules they mentioned, though. Rule number 5.
Oh, the prep one.
Yeah. It states that you absolutely must prepare, but you should prepare entirely separately. The guides warn that scripting or rehearsing together kills authenticity and energy.
Yeah, they were very firm on that.
But wait, if we prep separately to keep the conversation fresh, does that mean over-rehearsing is the actual enemy of good chemistry?
In a way, yeah.
It feels a bit like a jazz band, like you need to know the underlying scales, and you absolutely need to know who is playing the trumpet versus the bass.
Right. Everyone needs their instrument.
Exactly. But the actual magic only happens when you improvise on the stage together in real time. If you over-rehearse the solos, it's not jazz anymore.
That jazz band dynamic is exactly what the data supports. The structure the scales, and the assigned instruments. That acts as your safety net.
Okay, a safety net.
Yeah, it protects the team from disaster when the improvisation occasionally, falls flat, because it will sometimes.
Sure, nobody's perfect.
Right. You need that rigid underlying architecture so that when you do take a risk and improvise, it sounds like music instead of a car crash.
I love that. And that delicate tightrope, balancing rigid underlying structure with the freedom to improvise, that is the exact dilemma football managers face every single day.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you script every single pass, the team becomes robotic and predictable. But if you don't define the roles at all, it's just 11 players running aimlessly around a field.
And nowhere is that tension more explosive right now than at the World Cup.
Yes. Let's get into the football. We can see that theoretical debate playing out in real life today, right now, at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey.
Such a fascinating matchup.
The Norway versus Senegal match features two incredibly talented squads, but their managers have taken vastly different approaches to imposing structure on all that raw talent.
Let's look at Norway's approach first, because this is a nation that has been wandering in the footballing wilderness for decades.
Seriously, a 28-year exile.
Yeah, they are finally ending a 28-year World Cup exile. I mean, their last victory on the stage was a famous congenital rectal penalty to beat Brazil back in 1998.
Which feels like a lifetime ago.
It really does.
Wow.
And the architect of this massive return is their manager, Ståle Solbakken. And his personal backstory heavily informs his managerial style.
Right, the heart attack. This part of the source material was just incredible.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Back in 2001, during his playing career, he actually suffered a cardiac arrest during training.
And he was clinically dead, right?
Clinically dead for 7 minutes before paramedics managed to revive him.
Just, wow, 7 minutes.
Yeah. And that level of extreme personal resilience has clearly translated into a deeply intentional, highly disciplined coaching philosophy.
He's not leaving anything to chance.
Not a single thing. He has designed this incredibly complex system for the squad. On paper, Norway lines up in a standard, balanced 4-3-3 formation.
Looks totally normal on paper.
Exactly. But once the whistle blows, Solbakken deploys this heavily asymmetrical structure. Every single player has a highly distinct, non-redundant role.
Which goes right back to the podcast rules. Redundancy is the enemy.
Yes, it is the podcast bus driver and jazz band concept mapped perfectly onto a football pitch.
So break down the mechanics of this asymmetry for us, because it's pretty wild.
It's really fascinating. So starting on the left side, you have Antonio Nusa. He's heavily hyped as the Norwegian Neymar.
High praise.
Very high. And his specific role is to stay as wide as possible, physically hugging the touchline to stretch the opponent's defense horizontally.
And I have to mention a fun detail from the sources here, just to highlight how disciplined Nusa is. He actually wrote a life advice book for children before this tournament.
I love that detail.
Right, like that grounded, mature mindset is exactly what you need for a player who is being asked to maintain such strict positional discipline. He has to just stay pinned to that left touchline to force the opposing defense to spread out.
And that discipline is crucial, because that width creates massive spatial gaps on the opposite side of the pitch.
Which is where Julian Ryerson comes in.
Exactly. Norway's right back, Ryerson, uses those gaps to bomb forward aggressively into the attacking third.
Okay, so you have Nusa pinned left, Ryerson bombing up the right.
Yeah, and that overlapping run from Ryerson is the actual trigger for the entire system's ultimate goal. When he pushes up the right flank, it allows their nominal right winger, Alexander Surloth, to abandon the wing entirely and just drift centrally into the penalty box.
Ah, so he sneaks inside.
Right. And suddenly, the opposing center backs aren't just dealing with Erling Haaland.
Which is a nightmare on its own.
A total nightmare. But now they're dealing with Haaland and Sørloth operating as this twin strike force inside the box.
Wow. So Solbakken has essentially engineered a system that overloads the center of the pitch by manipulating the geometry of the wings.
That's exactly it. They're building this massive, inescapable gravitational force right in front of the goal.
It's also intentional.
Highly engineered architecture.
Yeah.
But then you contrast that with their opponents.
Yes, Senegal. And they arrived in North America carrying an immense amount of emotional baggage.
So much baggage.
They had that catastrophic controversy at the AFCON final in January, right? They literally walked off the pitch in protest.
Yeah, and then they got stripped of the Continental title.
Which they are currently fighting at the Court of Arbitration for Sport.
Right. So they're operating on pure adrenaline and emotion right now. Their manager, Pape Thiaw, was actually a player during Senegal's famous run to the 2002 World Cup quarterfinals.
Oh, that 2002 team was legendary.
They really were. And he has instituted a very dynamic, high-risk 4-3-3 system. Both fullbacks are instructed to push incredibly high up the pitch simultaneously.
Which borders on structural chaos, honestly.
It really does, because it leaves the center backs completely exposed to counterattacks.
And it seems like the organizational chaos on the pitch is directly mirroring a severe organizational rot off the pitch.
Oh, without a doubt.
The reports highlight that the squad is dealing with unpaid bonuses. Thiaw himself has reportedly been working without a formal contract or a salary since February.
Which is just unacceptable at this level.
Completely. And structurally, they have a glaring vulnerability in their attack. The entire offensive output is heavily reliant on 34-year-old Sadio Mané.
And everyone is worried about his health.
Yes. The fans are so anxious about his physical durability that they obsessively track his fitness through a viral internet meme.
Oh, the Grubna meme.
The Grabma meme. It focuses entirely on the state of his hamstrings, like they are constantly monitoring if he's grabbing his leg.
It's funny, but it shows how precarious their foundation is.
Yeah.
This high-risk system generates a tremendous amount of scoring opportunities, but without a clinical, reliable finisher to put those chances away consistently.
Because Mané can't do it all himself anymore.
Right. Without that finisher, the risk often just outweighs the reward.
I do want to challenge Solbakken's approach with Norway for a moment, though, before we get to the result of the match.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because we read in the sources that back in October 2024, Norway suffered a brutal 5-1 loss to Austria.
Oh, that was a rough game.
A total disaster. That match completely exposed the vulnerabilities of Solbakken's high defensive line, and his approval rating plummeted to a dismal 18% among fans.
Just 18%.
Yeah. So my question is, if a manager stubbornly sticks to a rigid structure despite horrific results, simply because he has a singular gravitational force like Haaland up front to occasionally bail him out, is that tactical genius or is that just managerial inflexibility?
See, that critique touches on the razor-thin line between conviction and stubbornness.
It's a fine line.
Very fine. But Solbakken clearly believed the underlying mathematical design of his asymmetrical system was correct. He saw the Austria loss as a failure of individual execution, not a failure of the blueprint itself.
So he just doubled down.
He bet his entire career that the structure would hold up when it mattered most.
And that bet was put to the ultimate test today in New Jersey, where Norway's rigid asymmetry violently collided with Senegal's high-risk emotional chaos.
And what a collision it was.
Let's break down the actual match, because the resulting 3-2 victory for Norway perfectly illustrates the consequences of a structural collapse.
Yeah, when a fragile system cracks under the sheer gravity of an opponent's singular talent, the resulting collapse is usually rapid and devastating.
And for Senegal, that major structural crack happened just before halftime, right? In the 43rd minute.
Exactly. Senegal's veteran captain, Kalidou Koulibaly, who is universally regarded as their defensive rock, made a crucial error under intense pressure.
And Norway's Marcus Pedersen instantly pounced on the mistake to open the scoring.
Because high-risk tactical systems inherently force defenders into uncomfortable, split-second decisions with absolutely no cover behind them.
They're on an island out there.
Right. Koulibaly's error wasn't just a random mistake. It was a structural inevitability when a team pushes too many players forward and leaves its foundation completely exposed.
And once that crack appeared, Norway's highly defined roles took over completely.
Erling Haaland did exactly what the asymmetrical system was engineered to let him do.
Which is score goals.
A lot of them. He scored a massive brace finding the net in the 48th and 58th minutes.
His international statistics are almost difficult to comprehend at this point.
They're absurd.
He is sitting at 59 goals and 52 caps for his country. And with this performance, he also became the first player since Harry Kane in 2018 to score multiple goals in his first 2 World Cup matches.
He's just a machine. But I will say, Senegal did showcase incredible individual spirit in response.
They didn't just give up.
No. Ismaila Sarr put the team on his back. He scored twice, once in the 53rd minute and again deep into stoppage time at 90+3.
Just an unbelievable effort.
He utilized pure speed and talent to try and outrun the failing system. But, as we've been saying, individual brilliance is rarely enough to overcome a deep structural deficit across a full 90 minutes.
And because of this 3-2 loss, Senegal is now facing a massive uphill battle to survive Group I. They absolutely must beat Iraq in their final group game to have any hope of advancing.
It's do or die for them now.
It is, but I want to zero in on the broader implications of Senegal's collapse for a second. This is a team that was riding an astonishing 30-game competitive unbeaten streak before this tournament.
30 games. That's incredible consistency.
Exactly. So does off-pitch organizational failure, like the Federation failing to pay the coach for months, or constantly fighting over bonus disputes, does that act as a slow poison to the on-pitch product?
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like no matter how much heart a player like Sarr shows, if the foundation of the organization is rotting, it eventually crumbles under the intense pressure of the World Cup.
The evidence strongly points toward organizational health dictating on-field performance. Structural rot, whether it's financial instability, administrative chaos, or tactical imbalance, it creates a massive cognitive burden on the individuals.
It just drains them.
It drains their resilience completely.
Oh, yeah.
However, suffering from a flawed system or hitting rock bottom after a high-profile error is very often the catalyst for a much-needed intentional reinvention.
And we can see that exact process of structural realignment saving careers if we zoom in from the massive global stage of the World Cup down to domestic league football.
Yes, the KPO report.
Right. The end-of-season report on the Kenyan Premier League's Most Improved XI offers this brilliant look at how individual practitioners rebuild themselves by finding their exact right role.
We see players in this report who were previously struggling, either because they were deployed in the wrong tactical structure or tasked with the completely wrong role.
But once they found clarity, their careers completely transformed.
The goalkeeper, Steve Okiang from Shabana FC, is a prime example of this psychological and structural recovery.
Oh, his story is wild. He started the season as a backup keeper, and when he finally got his opportunity to start, he made a devastating high-profile error in a chaotic 3-3 draw against APS Bummit.
And the fans were absolutely furious.
Oh, they were out for blood. And in most cases, a backup keeper who blunders his one shot at the starting job just folds under the pressure and disappears back to the bench forever.
Right, their confidence is shot.
Yeah.
But Ochieng managed to use that failure as a catalyst for a total mental reset. He stopped trying to be the hero who makes these impossible highlight reel saves and instead focused entirely on mastering the fundamental mechanics of his specific role.
He went back to basics.
Exactly. By relying on his training structure rather than his emotions, he fought his way back, cemented his starting position, and ultimately won the league's Golden Glove with 16 clean sheets.
16 clean sheets after that start is phenomenal, and the offensive turnarounds in the league are just as striking. Joe Waithira at Marenga Seal went from a disappointing 6 goals last season to a massive 18 goals this season, capturing the Golden Boot.
Just tripled his output.
Tripled it. Then you have Tyson Otieno for AFC Leopards. Last season, he was essentially a forgotten fringe player, just wasting away on the bench at Kenya Police.
Right. Completely underutilized.
Yeah, he transfers to Leopards, steps into a clearly defined midfield role, and immediately becomes the heartbeat and tempo dictator of the entire squad.
But, the player who best illustrates the power of role definition is Oliver Majaka from Kakamega Homeboys.
Oh, definitely. He experienced a massive breakout this year, scoring 11 goals.
But the scouting report specifically notes that he only unlocked this true potential after his manager intentionally shifted his role from playing out wide on the wing to a central attacking position.
And we really need to analyze why that shift matters so much. Playing on the wing requires a very specific skill set, right? It's about isolation, pure speed, and crossing ability.
Yeah, it's a very particular job.
But moving centrally changes a player's entire field of vision. It requires spatial awareness, distribution, and the ability to operate in these really tight angles.
It's a completely different mental map.
Right. Majaka's improvement wasn't a matter of him suddenly deciding to, work harder. He simply found the right position for his unique skill set.
Exactly.
It is the exact equivalent of realizing you are naturally a podcast bus driver after spending years failing miserably while trying to be the color commentator.
That's a great analogy.
Like, you weren't a bad broadcaster, you were just sitting in the wrong seat the whole time.
Because if a person spends their entire career trying to force a dynamic that contradicts their natural strengths, they will inevitably look like a failure.
Always.
But the moment the role is properly defined and the surrounding structure aligns with the individual's actual talent, that same person suddenly looks like an absolute genius.
Well, let's pull all of these disparate threads together. We have traveled from the highly controlled environments of podcast studios to the high-stakes tactical chess match at MetLife Stadium, all the way to the pitches of the Kenyan Premier League.
It's a journey. But the fundamental lesson across all these arenas is that sustained success is never an accident.
Never.
It requires an immense amount of unglamorous preparation. It demands that individuals intentionally lean into their distinct strengths while actually acknowledging their weaknesses.
Which is hard to do.
It is. And most importantly, it requires ruthlessly defining the roles within the group.
So, for you listening right now, take a hard look at the teams you operate within every day. Analyze your project groups at work, or even the organizational dynamics in your own household.
It applies everywhere.
Ask yourself, who is actually driving the bus? Are the roles within your group properly defined, or are you simply throwing talented people into a room and blindly hoping the magic just happens?
We culturally obsess over the idea of chemistry. We view it as this mysterious, magical spark that simply ignites when the stars align between individuals.
Like it's a fairy tale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But based on the mechanisms we've unpacked today, from the podcasting analytics to Solbakken asymmetrical geometry to the Majaka's positional shift, consider this alternative perspective.
Okay, what is it?
What if chemistry is not magic at all? What if chemistry is actually just the natural byproduct of extreme structural clarity? If every single person knows exactly what is expected of them, does the magic just happen on its own?
Wow. The next time you see a chaotic group of talented individuals step onto a field, into a boardroom, or up to a microphone, look past the raw talent. Look for the underlying architecture, because if the structure isn't there, all the talent in the world won't be enough to save them.